All right, let's talk about how the legends do it. Today, we're diving into a classic Wall Street strategy for picking apart a company. And here's the best part. It doesn't involve any crazy algorithms, just a framework that's all about common sense. This comes from the man himself, Peter Lynch, an absolute icon who ran the Fidelity Magellan Fund. His whole philosophy was built on this one super simple but powerful idea. Behind every little stock ticker is a real, living, breathing company. If that company does well, the stock is going to follow. See? It's not about gambling. It's about knowing what you own. And that's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, with thousands of companies out there, where do you even begin? Well, Lynch had a very specific strategy, and it starts in a place you would probably never expect. Okay, let's get into Lynch's most famous idea. He argued that you, the regular person, the amateur investor, you actually have a secret weapon, a powerful advantage over all those big shots on Wall Street. Sounds kind of crazy, I know, but his logic is just brilliant. Just think about it for a second. You're the one who sees the line out the door for the new iPhone. You know which coffee shop in your neighborhood is always packed. You hear your friends raving about some new brand. That's your edge. You are on the ground seeing these trends happen in real time. Lynch was convinced that this kind of grassroots research is way more valuable than some stuffy report from a Wall Street analyst sitting in an office miles away. So, how do we put this into practice? Well, Lynch had a real soft spot for a particular kind of company. He wasn't out there chasing the latest, hottest tech stock or the trendiest new thing. Nope, he was looking for something completely different. He loved boring. Seriously. And why? Because boring companies get overlooked. They don't make the headlines, analysts aren't hyping them up, and you know what that means? It means you can often buy into them at a really fair price. He looked for businesses that were just easy to understand, maybe even a little dull, because that meant they were built on something solid, not just hype. Which brings us to our case study for today. This company is like the perfect Peter Lynch-style find. The name isn't flashy, it doesn't sound like it's going to change the world, it sounds boring. And that's exactly why we're interested. So what's their deal? It's super simple. They take cassava, which is a root vegetable, and they turn it into stuff like tapioca starch and sweeteners. But here's the secret weapon, the really cool part. They take their own factory waste and convert it into organic fertilizer and even biogas, which they use to generate their own electricity. How smart is that? It's efficient, and it tells a great story. Okay, so we found our simple, boring company. Now what? For Lynch, the next step was always the same. You gotta look at the earnings. Are they actually making any money? This was Lynch's golden rule. A stock's price can bounce all over the place in the short term, but over the long run, it's driven by one thing and one thing only: profits. So let's pop the hood and look at the numbers. So these numbers are pulled right from their official annual report. You can see the revenue, that's the total money coming in the door. It's been growing pretty steadily. That's a great sign. But notice the profit for 2024. It took a dip. Now, a good analyst doesn't panic here. They get curious. They ask why. And don't worry, we're going to get to that. This number here, earning per share, kind of boils all that profit down for you. It means that for every single share of the company that exists, it earned about 13.7 rupiah in 2024. This is the bottom line, your slice of the pie. For Lynch, understanding this per-share value is absolutely key to knowing what you're really buying. But hey, profit is only half the picture. A company can be profitable and still go under if it's just drowning in debt. That's why Lynch's next step was always to give the balance sheet a quick health check. And here's a little snapshot of that. Think of it like this. Assets are all the stuff the company owns. Liabilities are all the stuff it owes. And you can see right away, they own a whole lot more than they owe. That gives them a really strong financial cushion. It's a huge sign of a durable business that can handle a few bumps in the road. All right, now we get to the part Lynch really loved. The numbers tell you what happened, but the story tells you why it happened, and, more importantly, what might happen next. He always said you have to understand the narrative behind the numbers. So remember that dip in profit we saw? Well, here's the reason, right from the company's own report. An El Niño drought hit the region, and it really messed with the cassava harvest. See? This is a real-world problem, a temporary headwind that perfectly explains that drop in profit. It's not a sign the business model is broken. It was just an external challenge. And the rest of the story is pretty strong. The company pays dividends, which means it's giving cash back to its owners. It also has a history of buying back its own stock. That shows management thinks their own shares are a good deal. And that vision about sustainability, turning their waste into power? Come on. This isn't just a starch company. It's an efficient, shareholder-friendly, and forward-thinking operation. That is a compelling story. So that's the framework. Find a simple company, check the earnings, confirm its financial health, and then uncover the story. And here's the most important part of all of this. Everything we just looked at, every number, every quote, every single piece of that story, it all came directly from the company's publicly available annual report. You don't need a secret password or some Wall Street insider. All it takes is being willing to do a little bit of reading. This is what Lynch meant by empowering the individual investor. And that brings us right back to the final question. Just look around your world, your job, your hobbies, your community. What simple, excellent, maybe even kind of boring companies do you see every day that Wall Street might be completely overlooking? Because according to Peter Lynch, that's exactly where you just might find your next great investment.